Hey, BassGeek here, and over the past couple of years, urchin baits like the Coike and dice baits like the King Tumbleweed and the XZone GBO have exploded on the bass fishing scene. Now, these baits may look similar, but they excel in totally different situations. And Fishing Geeks, today I'm going to show you what makes these baits different, when each type shines, and how choosing the right one can help you catch more bass when all those other soft plastics fail you. So the first thing to explode on the scene was the fuzzy dice. And of course, as you know, that really rolled into a lot of fuzzy baits. But the fuzzy dice were catching a lot of bass, winning a lot of tournaments. And two of my favorites are the GBO from XZone, and it's almost a fuzzy pyramid, and the Tumbleweed by Strike King. Both companies make a version that floats, and both companies make a version that sinks. But then along came the Coike, or the Coike, however you want to say it. I've let my redneck in, so it's going to say Coike. This is more of what I would put in an urchin bait category. Now, although there's some similarities, there's a lot of differences too. And the first similarity is really, these can be made out of anything. They can be made out of the silicone stuff, the stretchy stuff, just like this Coike, or they can be made out of the softer standard plastisol plastic like the Tumbleweed or the GBO. Now, these have really taken over. But there's a huge difference, and there's a reason why you shouldn't throw just a Coike or just a dice bait. You need to have both of these in your arsenal. And today I'm really going to talk to you about why each one or each type shines. So let's go ahead and let's start with the dice baits and say we're really the first on the scene. I myself have several videos talking about how to rig each version of these baits. But let's talk about what makes them different, and I think where they shine, where you're going to want to fish them. The great thing about the dice baits, almost every single one of them, they're very, very subtle underwater. One of my favorite ways to fish them is a drop shot, but there's a ton of other ways to fish them. For example, you can put a nail weight through and a treble hook. You can put it on a jig head. You can do so many different things with these baits. If you want to fish them shallower, you can go with one that floats that has no salt in it. Or you can go with one that's salted and it will sink a little bit faster. You can go with one that has a lot of tentacles on it, or one that has fewer tentacles on them. Now, the difference between these tentacles and these baits, and I really consider these more finessey. You don't have to put the work into them to get the bite. They're great on a drop shot because they can sit right there in that bass's face, and those little, very light, very soft tentacles or hairs are going to continuously move with even the slightest vibration in the rod or the slightest current in the water, whether that be wind or actual current, no matter where you're at. Some of the places that I like to fish these, if I'm scoping, these tend to be the go-to baits for me in ultra clear water, in tough conditions, bright sunny days. These are going to be the baits that I'm going to throw out there and just let sink real slow and just barely twitch. Barely put any movement in them because they're going to have so much natural movement themselves. Like I said, they're incredible on a drop shot because you're just going to let it sit there and just barely move them, and these little hairs are going to do the job for you. And it's one of the reasons why I fish these a little more finesse. 90% of the time these are going to be on a spinning rod. We'll talk about that setup a little bit later, but I really consider these just more finesse in those tough situations when I need a bait to sit in front of a fish for a long time and just be super natural with the lightest of movement. That's when I'm going to pick up a hairy dice bait. Now, when it comes to Urchin style baits, we've really learned a lot from the pros. Now, what's actually pretty cool about this is I literally put out one of the very first Coike bait videos on YouTube. And, you know, we rigged it a little bit different. We fished it a little bit different that day because, truthfully, no one was fishing these yet. The only other video out was a guy fishing it on a drop shot. You can go look at the dates on these, but we were fishing it a little bit different. And we've got another bait where we even talk about fishing these on top of the water. So really interesting rigs. I'll leave links to both of those videos at the end of this video if you want to check them out. Now, the thing of it is there's a lot more than just the Coike out there. And this is the one thing that I do want to stress to you. You don't have to, and there's really zero difference in a Coike and a prickly pear by Hags Baits. And there's another couple of companies that I have Urchin baits from that I'll leave links in the description to. Even got some smaller ones, which I like a lot for smallmouth, from Amazon and the TikTok shop over on TikTok. So there's a lot of different places to get these. Don't be stressed just trying to get the Coikes because they're the same exact thing, guys. They're made in the same factory over in China. Now, now here's the kicker to that, unless it's not the silicone type plastic. In other words, if it's your standard plastisol, so it's not the floating style, rubbery style plastic, they could be made right here at home. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's another thing that most people get kind of freaked out about, is if it's those. Now, the good thing about these are they definitely last a long time. Now, circling back, talking about the pros. Now, we've really seen the pros accelerate the Coike craze over the past few months. And what's incredible about it and how they've been using it, and where I have figured out that these Urchin style baits, especially your bigger ones, really tend to shine, are those places around cover and structure. Those places where the bass are feeding on bigger bait fish, bluegill, panfish of some sort. If you've got some bigger shad, you know, some gizzard shad, the more shad colors will work there also. But almost every time I've had a bite on an Urchin style bait, it's actually been around some type of cover structure that I'm pulling that bass out of. And that's the difference between these and their smaller counterparts, is that what these do is they have a very big drawing power, like the full cast. The full cast, which is the same size as this prickly pear, but this is the same size as the full cast. And the retrieves, we'll show you in just a minute, are completely different. But that's really where you're seeing these Coike style baits shine. And that's when you're around cover, you're around a little bit dirtier water, you got a little bit of chop like we've got out here today. That's where these baits pull those bass out of that cover, pull those big bass out of that cover, from around docks, from around marinas, that sort of thing. That's where these shine. So on your Urchin baits or your Coikes, especially the full size, like the full cast, your bigger Urchin Coike style baits, you can throw them on a spinning rod and reel combo and get away with it if you want to. I don't like that. I don't think you're going to get the hookup. I don't think you're going to get the action from the bait that you're looking for. So 99.9% of the time, this is what I'm going to throw them on. Even the smaller ones, depending on the weight. And this is a TFO Professional. This is about a $130 setup. It's a medium fast action. Really, it's one of my jerkbait rods. Got a little more backbone than some of the other jerkbait rods because they're a little softer. So it's not a medium moderate, it's medium fast. And that's because this is going to have a lot of resistance to it And we'll get into retrieve basics and here in just a minute, but I couple that with fluorocarbon, canine fluorocarbon on here, 100% Pro 100 fluorocarbon. And then I've got the reel, which is a Daiwa Tatula. It's a 7-1 speed reel, and this thing casts these things literally a mile. 3/16 weight, by the way. If you want to know what I've got rigged up here, this is a Big Daddy's, by the way. It's the long shank. Now they've come out with their own Coike head, which I don't have any of yet, but this right here works incredibly well. It's kind of their long shank jig head minnow. But this is the one that I'm going to use 99% of the time, even on the smaller Urchin / Coike baits. Now, if I'm throwing one of the hairy dice baits, generally, like I said, I like to throw them on a drop shot, or I'm going to throw them out in open water. 90% of the time, that's either going to be with a nail weight and a treble hook, or it's going to be with a very small jig head. Again, 3/16, 1/8 is probably what I'm going to go to, depending on the depth of the fish. I got a 1/4 weight on the drop shot right now. Again, that's going to depend on the depth. And it really depends on the rig and the depth of the fish as to all that rigging. And it also depends on the fish and the area you're fishing and the rig based on the rod and reel combo you want to use for either bait. Like I said, it's not a rigging video. There's 100,000 of them out there. But what I've got right here is a 7'3" medium. This is a TFO option, and I just like it because if I want to fish it out in open water for bass in open water, I can make a long cast with it. If I want to fish it vertical, it keeps it away from the trolling motor on a drop shot, and I can hold it in position. I've got that teamed up with a Daiwa Fuego LT. This is a 3000 series. And on here, I've got the K9 JDM Silk Braid. You talk about casting a long way. This is one of the thinnest, best braids you'll ever use for casting distance. And I've got a fluorocarbon, the K9 Pro 100, 100% fluorocarbon leader on here. That is an 8-pound test. This is a 14-pound test. They do make it down to 11, but trust me, this is smaller than any 8-pound test braid you're ever going to use. So we're not going to cover a lot as far as retrieves go, because there's just so many different ways to rig them. So I'm going to give you some basics about retrieves. And when it comes to the dice, it's subtlety. All right, you'll see a lot of the pros, they're twitching that Coike. That's the thing you want to do with the Coike. But with the dice, because these things move so easily, it's really either dead stick or just barely move it, barely shake it. Don't do a lot. The bait works for you. You don't have to work for it. That's the key to the retrieve when it comes to the dice baits. No matter how you rig them, make sure that you do less. Less is more with these baits. Now, because the Coikes have that really tougher skin, tougher tentacles, they don't have a lot of motion at all. So what you've seen the pros do a whole lot are these real hard twitches. It's not so much like shaking a minnow, which would be too much for the dice baits. It's more like a jerk bait. It's not a soft jerk bait, but an actual deep diving jerk bait. And that's what you want to do with the Urchin Coike style baits. You want to really hit it hard. Hit it hard and feed the line back, because it'll pop, everything will close down and expand. It is a great bluegill imitating bait. Now, hook set and landing bass on either rod, it's pretty much the same thing. Down, up with the spinning rod, it's going to be up. Get your rod tip down. With this, it's going to be side set. Keep your rod tip down. Get them to the boat, net those bass, thumb those bass if you have to. That's really it, because again, there's so many different ways that you can fish them. As a matter of fact, I'm going to leave you 2 videos. The first ever Coike fishing video on YouTube is right here. And above it is the myriad of ways to rig these Coike Urchin style baits and the dice baits from top water to bottom. All right, questions, comments in the comment section below. Like it if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. Make sure you ring that bell. Be part of the 100% Watch Squad. And you geeks rock.